of two exercises, a kickstand hinge or deadlift and a split squat. So if you're going to attempt this, first you need to spend some time mastering the kickstand deadlift and making sure you're comfortable with a split squat and very comfortable with what those two movements feel like in your body, because we're going to blur them sort of together, but we actually want to keep them fairly well defined as two separate movements. So the setup is going to be much like I typically set up a kickstand hinge. You're going to shift your weight over your working leg, or in this case, my front leg is going to be this right leg. It's going to be my deadlifting or my hinging leg. My body weight is going to start off on this leg. And I've got my knee ahead of the ankle. So the knee is over the midfoot. You can take this up a further notch by letting that heel hover off the ground. For this, I'm going to keep my heel down. So then my knee is flexed, it's slightly ahead of my ankle, and it is going to stay in that position for the first part of the movement, the hinge. I'm then going to take this right hand to my sit bone. This is more for feedback. Once you know how to do this movement, you can ditch this. But I want to really feel that my sit bone slides back. Notice it stays high, my knee stays where it's at, and I'm hinging through this right hip. I'm going to hinge as deeply as I can into this right hip, staying high in the sit bone. Knee stays in that original angle. And then I'm going to shift this into a knee focus movement. And I'm going to let that knee bend, which is going to drop this pelvis underneath me, dropping me into this little split squat position here. Now I'm not going to stand up from here. I'm going to return to my hinge. So I'm going to push through this foot. I'm going to try not to let this knee fly back. Instead, I want to think about drawing this sit bone back up as high as I had it before. Knee still is ahead of that ankle. And then I come out by pulling that hip back to that foot. So notice that knee never came behind the ankle. And that's a key piece to this. So it's a hinge, which is a hip dominant motion. And then it's a split squat. This is a knee dominant motion. Notice that knee is going to come ahead of my toes. You don't have to come this deep. And because I bent my knee as I was hinged, I'm now in a more vertical orientation in my torso. Okay? But then I'm going to start extending the knee, pressing. I'm actually doing this by pressing through the floor, lifting this sit bone back up. I'm going to try not to let this knee pull back significantly. I want to find my way back to that original hinge position where the knee is over the midfoot, the sit bone is high, the torso is reaching out in this more horizontal position. And then instead of standing up, knee stays where it's at, I'm going to think about pulling this right hip back over the foot. So you can kind of think about this guy as a hip motion, then a knee dominant motion, another knee dominant motion in reverse, finished with another hip dominant motion. So it's basically your kickstand deadlift, which is this. We call it a kickstand deadlift because this guy isn't really supporting my body weight, it's just assisting in that balance. And a split squat, which is this. Okay? So we're basically taking a kickstand deadlift and sticking a split squat in the middle. Pay attention to the details. They totally change how this movement challenges your body.